Good afternoon, Mayor.
Good afternoon.
The other day I asked you about asking Pedro Martinez to resign, and you answered saying you didn't ask anybody to do anything. Did you or did you not ask Pedro Martinez to resign?
Here's what I've asked, and this is what I was asked to do when I ran for office, was to make a commitment to transforming our public schools. And that's what I'm going to do. As a parent, the people of Chicago voted for one of their own. Someone who actually sends their kids to public schools, someone who's actually taught in our public schools. Now, as you know, I don't ever discuss personnel issues. I find it to be highly offensive, irresponsible, and raggedy, and I don't do raggedy. And so I want to be very clear. Here's what I've asked of all of my leaders. We're going to invest in people and transform this city. And people who are part of that effort are reflecting the values of what this city is all about. So I will continue to ask and demand that we put our children first and the families who rely upon our public education system. The other thing, which is actually important, is that we've also asked the state of Illinois to do more. Look, when I started organizing as an educator, the state of Illinois was ranked 49th out of 50 in terms of education funding. Now we're at 32nd. I don't think anybody's given anyone a high five for being in 32nd place. We can do better. And the $3.6 billion that the state has calculated that the entire state of Illinois is owed, districts across the state of Illinois, we want those dollars for those children as well. But of course, I was elected to fight for the families who send their kids to public schools, just like I do. All right?
You still didn't answer the question. Did you or did you not ask Pedro Martinez to resign?
As I said, I don't discuss personnel issues. I don't do that. It's irresponsible. But I can tell you this, though, for sure, that the people of Chicago expect me to fight for families. And that's what I'm going to do. And here's why that's important. Everybody knows that my son is a Bronco. But do you know why he goes to Kenwood? It's because there wasn't a school on the west side that offered orchestra and soccer and other extracurricular activities that are important. Do you know how many families every single day wake up trying to figure out, what is the best possible scenario for their child? And so if I have to make a decision, me and my wife, about a school on the south side, simply because our children play string instruments, no one should be happy or feel comfortable or celebrate the fact that you have families like mine that have to travel to the south side so their children can have an orchestra class. I'm going to fight for public education in this city. As our brother articulated earlier, in the 90s, it was awful. Sold off all the city assets, sold off everything, didn't pay pensions, privatized our schools, shut down public housing. I was elected to fight for the people of this city. And whoever's in the way of that, get out of it.
Mayor, do you expect...
Hold on a second, there's some order. Please, go ahead. You're okay.
Hi, Mayor.
Hi.
Hi. We had somebody shot on CTA today, 4 others on Labor Day. What is happening on CTA? What is your message to those who have to rely on that to get where they need to go? Should there be a change in leadership there?
Well, what's happening in Chicago is what has been happening in Chicago for a very long time. People have ignored the needs of people. But there's a new day for Chicago. I'm not ignoring the needs of people. It's why we were fighting for bringing Chicago home. Corporations blocked it. They didn't want to pay their fair share. And so you have a housing crisis, not just in Chicago, but across the globe. And people are becoming increasingly desperate. Of course, my heart breaks every time I hear about a shooting, especially when someone is harmed or even worse, killed. As far as leadership is concerned, I don't discuss personnel issues.
And then just to follow up to that, there's supposed to be some sort of gun detection technology that's on CTA now. Is that working? Is that something you support? Or is there another alternative in the short term that you can promise people?
Well, first of all, it's not policing and technology alone. That is actually lazy. If it was just technology, then we all could just go home and pull out our iPads and feel good about ourselves. Now, some people probably do that, and I don't have a judgment, there. But that's why this room is comprehensive. We announced for the first time in the history of Chicago, we have built an alternative response to 911. 40% of 911 calls are mental health crises. Police officers should not have to show up to mental health crises. Now, I'm grateful to the CIT workers and the paramedics who did it, but we are hiring and investing in public health. We're opening up a mental health clinic in Roseland on the south side. Providing behavioral health care services at the UIC Village in Lower West Side and Garfield Park. We're hiring young people. Do you understand where I'm going here? It's a comprehensive approach. If it were just one thing, one answer, then I guess you could hire a dictator. But I'm glad that we have a democracy that recognizes that in order to build a better, stronger, safer Chicago, you have to have affordable housing. You have to have reliable, safe public transportation. You got to invest in young people. You have to have a public education system that actually responds to the needs of families. That's what we're doing. Do you understand why people are somewhat uneasy with the moment that we're in right now? It's because people have gotten comfortable over the years of just responding to the status quo. This collection of work right here is not status quo. What you're seeing is transformation. You're seeing a new way for the city of Chicago. And that's a good thing for the people of Chicago. That's what they voted for. That's what they got.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor.
I need some water. Good afternoon.
You want some water first?
No, you don't have to worry about that. You're just fine. You got one job. You got to ask a question and a half. There are other people out here who get water from me, but thank you for your concern.
You've outlined a very bold vision
Yeah.
about investing in people, which will take a lot of money. You have a $1 billion budget deficit looming over the city of Chicago. You have teachers who are asking for substantial increases in the education budget. You have Springfield, who says they're not really in the mood to start financing your vision for Chicago. Where is the money going to come from? Can we expect a property tax increase because of it? And where do we go from here?
I don't know what's more bold, my vision or your questions. It's a lot. You know, look. We're supposed to be bold. We have to be bold. We do. And the reason why we have to be bold is because, look, this is not me judging anyone. But when leadership in the past decided not to pay into our pension system, that was irresponsible. They took dollars that was dedicated for workers. I'm a worker. Dollars that were dedicated for workers and decided to give it to developers. So now, and this happened in the 90s. I was in high school, Mike was in high school. Some folks weren't even born yet on this stage. And they spent all the money. They spent all of it. And then now here we are 30 years later, they left us with the debt. I think it's just important to understand that context. I know what your ultimate question is, where do we go from here? I got you, I promise you. But it's important for the people of Chicago to know that the reason why we have to be bold is because you had irresponsible governance that took dollars that should have been going to the people, gave it to developers, and our neighborhoods lost. And then after they ran out of money, you know what they did? They started to sell off all the assets. Do you imagine if your ancestors left you a home and then you begin to spend all of the wealth that they built? And then when you ran out of money, you started to sell the paintings and everything else in the house? That's what leadership in Chicago did. They literally sold off the assets, parking meters, the skyways, right? And so now, whether you're in the mood or not, we got to deal with it. I wish governance came down to people's mood. You imagine? I wish it just came down to people's moods. So if you're in a good mood, maybe you get a good government. If you're not in a good mood, then see what happens. So here's what we have to do. Everything is on the table, right? I have to deal with this deficit while also investing in people. And investments are up. $1.25 billion investment for economic development and housing. We're building affordable homes. We're still doing that. We're going to keep hiring young people. We're still doing that. And we have to respond to the needs of the people. As far as, what teachers deserve, I've been a teacher. I have. And I have not met one person who just simply hates teachers. Well, maybe there's a couple. But those are the ones who are trying to bust and destroy unions. Right? So the people who hate teachers, these are the people who are aligned with people like Donald Trump. Right? Who want to undermine public sector and public unions like Bruce Rauner did, right? So where we go from here is that we all have to come together and, make the hard decisions. We've already saved the taxpayers over $200 million. Expenditures are down. So we've been responsible while investments are still up. So we're going to continue to have those conversations to respond to the crisis that no one on this stage created. None of us. None of us did it. But all of us on this stage in the entire city of Chicago, we're certainly going to fix it.
But the question remains, who's going to pay for that fix?
Look, as I said, everything's on the table. Now, the ideal situation would have been what we've been calling for, which is a fair tax. State of Illinois, I hope that our partners in Springfield consider going for that again. The rich and the ultra wealthy and major corporations continue to get tax breaks. They circumvent their responsibility by moving through these loopholes, but they have to do more. Look, our economy is shifting dramatically. As you just heard from Louis, we're trying to keep prices just for groceries and businesses stale enough so that the profit can be made and people can still afford. So the wealthy in this city, the wealthy in this country have to pay their fair share. That's what Bring Chicago Home was all about. You remember that? 97% of people would have received the tax break. 3% roughly, and I think I'm rounding up, would have had to pay a little bit more incrementally. That's how stingy some of these corporate interests are. That they would rather us have conversations about the homeless on trains than actually pay their fair share so that we don't have people who are unhoused. And so that's a system that we do have to disrupt. And so, yeah, people are a little bit uneasy about that because they have benefited from the turmoil and the chaos. But I'm just as determined as I was when I was a public school teacher, making sure that our children had the very best education. I'm still that determined person, as determined as I am to make sure that my own children have a future in this city. And so we're going to do everything in our power to, of course, to fix this challenge. But we also have to be very clear that the way to transform this city, this state, this country, the rich and the ultra wealthy have to pay their fair share in taxes.
Good afternoon, Mayor.
It is a good afternoon. Let me just say, of all the things that I get credit for, I never get credit for good weather. So could you tweet that, Alice, that the mayor of Chicago made sure that the weather was perfect today?
Well, let's circle back to that after my budget question.
Okay, all right.
In a similar vein to him, why is the city resorting to delaying the budget timetable when we've known as early as last budget season that the deficit would grow to?
Yeah, it's not a delay. Look, we have a simple timeline. It's a timeline, right? A delay would be that we do something after the constitutional responsibility that I have as the executive. I have a window in which we can deliver a budget, and so I'm going to work within that window. And as long as that window was there for me, I'm going to utilize or take the space, whatever is necessary.
And I know your team is saying everything is on the table, but raising property taxes was a red line you drew in your mayoral campaign. Do you think a year and a half later that the calculus has changed?
We've always known that the budget gap would be what it is. Remember when I ran for office, I was the only one who put forth a budget plan. Remember that, right? And I said that the budget gap in my first year would be a $500 million, which was accurate. And then, of course, we projected the one that we're in now. I want to do everything in my power to make sure that working people and middle-class families in particular have a real opportunity to grow in Chicago. You know, it's unfortunate, though, that, again, because of the failures of decades ago, that now we have the responsibility to fix what's broken. We're looking at everything, and we will put forth a proposal that not only closes this budget deficit, but sets us up for the future. Now, one thing that I can say for sure is we're going to keep investing in young people. We're going to continue to build affordable homes. We're going to continue to make sure that mental health and behavioral health care services are provided. We're going to make sure that our public education system does not force families like mine to have to shop all over the city of Chicago to find an orchestra class, or swimming. We were just at Farragut High School, I think a year ago, and many of those students that I sat with, they're just looking for simple resources like having a bus to get to their game. They don't have uniforms in some of these schools. So sports and extracurricular activities, of course, have been starved out. So, again, as the mayor of the city of Chicago, I have the responsibility to look at everything, and that's what I'm doing.
Good afternoon, Mayor. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you.
I would like to go back to the education. I have just a question. Have you asked to the Board of Education or one of their members to fire Pedro Martinez?
No, what I've had, when we talk to, members of the Board of Education, what we've asked them to do is not cut our schools. One of the proposals that was out there was 5,000 layoffs, firing teachers' assistants, which primarily are brown and black women. Who wants to fire brown and black women? Not me. So, those ideas that were put forth, they're just a non-starter. What we've said is that, they have a responsibility to take care of their workers, and that includes their retirement. Got to pay for it, right? Previous administrations decided that they weren't going to pay pensions. I'm not going to do that, all right? But what we've also said, not only do we have to make sure that we're not cutting into our workforce, and that we have to take care of our workers, making sure that they have retirement, we have to invest in our children, you all. Do you all know that is the single most important thing that we can do as a society, is invest in our children? Look, I've been in these classrooms. I taught 7th and 8th graders. I've taught high school. And they show up in our classrooms with tremendous hope and aspiration. But you know what prevents them, in many cases, from fulfilling their full purpose? It's opportunity. They come hungry. They're unhoused, 20,000 of them. My administration is in the business of solving and fixing what has been broken. This is not about a single individual. That's what you all are missing here. This is not about one person and one person's job. This is about the 300 and almost 30,000 families that require me to lead, to fight for them, and to invest in them. And do you understand that is my God-given purpose, is to invest in our young people. If this was just about one person, this could be solved. But this is not about one person. Hundreds of thousands of families need our public education system to finally be right and to do right. I'm going to do that with the help of the people who are on this stage. Do you have a follow-up? Are you good? Okay.
Mayor, my
You've
apologies
been very
again.
patient. It's
No,
okay.
no.
It's all right. It's
Come
fine.
from a big family. We fight for our food. But again, my apologies. Just to follow up on that, the reports are that as many as several of the CPS board members are thinking about resigning. Do you expect some of them to resign? And 6 months before a new school board, a hybrid school board comes in, why would they do that?
I'm glad you mentioned that we're going to have at least partially an elected school board, because I fought for that. I did. In fact, September 9th, first of all, I'm not on Twitter. Somebody sent me a screenshot. I'm not. I don't know any of my login passwords, so I can't even see what's on there. But there was a picture of me taking an arrest inside of City Hall in front of the elevators. And that was a time in which, remember when Rahm Emanuel was closing all the schools and how horrific that was, and how traumatic it is still today, and how devastating it was for the people of Chicago. It was one of the greatest acts of terror that I still believe that was ever promulgated on the people of Chicago, especially black folks. So we took an arrest there. There was a hunger strike. I was a part of that. And this community, as Alderman Rodriguez knows, has a long history in that type of resistance. And we did that because that's how much we believe in public education, right? And so we fought for a school board because there was no democracy in this city. We fought to make sure that happened. And then eventually we'll have a fully elected school board. So that's a good day. It's a good win for the people of Chicago. As far as us transitioning into a hybrid, look, that process is inevitable. The reports that you all are hearing, I guess that's the nature of Chicago, where there are a lot of rumors. There was a song about that too, Paris. Do you remember the name of that song, Paris? Look at all these rumors. It's okay. You can Google it. But I don't live in that space, because it distracts us from what we really have to do, right? So here's the thing. How about I do this for you? So you don't have to live in rumors. How about we just live in the truth? And here's the truth. I'm going to do whatever is necessary for the people of Chicago when it comes to our public education system. Public education at the expense of the state, particularly in the South, after all, is a Negro idea. And so now a black man gets to live out the hopes and aspirations of my ancestors who fought for the right for education. And guess what I'm going to do, Paris? I'm going to do exactly what our ancestors wanted me to do, is to fight to ensure that every single child in this city, no matter what zip code you live in, no matter what neighborhood you live in, that you have a right to the fundamental access to our democracy, and our democracy will only survive through public accommodations. And so whoever wishes to be the part of that effort and that movement, they'll find comfort in my administration. Thank you all very much.
Yes. Oh, we have more questions.
Oh man.
Couple more reporters here.
I'm so sorry. Who else has a question?
Hi, Mayor.
Oh, shoot, I had dropped the mic and everything.
I have a follow-up to Paris.
I'm gonna need some more water, y'all.
Me too.
Go ahead.
Mayor, are you talking to any of your board members and asking them to stay on, or do you welcome the opportunity to appoint new members who might be more aligned with your position on the loan issue and the CEO?
So first of all, let me just say this. The alignment with me is the alignment with the people of Chicago. The people of Chicago voted for a public school teacher. They voted for a parent. They have one of their own in office. And so, as we transition into the next phase, of course we're gonna, when we get to that point, we'll have those conversations, but we're not at that point right now.
And then still on CPS, one of your allies in Springfield, Representative Cam Buckner, says that, this public dispute, it's grown very public on CPS, with Martinez writing the op-ed in the Tribune and reporting about potential resignations, said that this doesn't inspire confidence in Springfield among lawmakers in your administration. Are you concerned that the fact that this has grown so public hinders your ability to push for other things that require negotiations, like your budget in city council or your revenue priorities in Springfield?
Yeah, here's the inspiration. It's the families of the Chicago Public Schools. That's the inspiration. So here's the thing, and look, I have not seen that, that quote. I have to take your word for it. But my inspiration, they're the people who rely upon the public school system. Look, Springfield, I've been down there. They were 49 out of 50 when I started organizing. I mean, what other inspiration do you need? If schools do not have libraries and librarians, if children are unhoused, and that's the case, if families like mine have to rush to the South Side just to make sure that my child has access to music, that's the inspiration, right? Is to repair the harms that have been done. And so I'm grateful that we have a strong partner and ally like Representative Cam Buckner, who I know is committed to making sure that the $1.1 billion that the city of Chicago rightfully deserves, just like the $2.5 billion the other districts deserve and throughout the state of Illinois, that we're all going to work together to accomplish that.
Hi, Mayor.
Okay, you got to ask me a question that allows me to drop the mic. So ask me a White Sox question.
No. So back in March, I asked you about police overtime spending, and you said that you were frustrated and it was out of control. This week, I reported with my colleague Jared Brutecki that the police department have spent $129 million in the first 6 months of 2024. That's $30 million more than they were budgeted for the whole year. Why haven't you been able to get overtime spending by the police department under control, especially given the city's, as you say, dire financial situation?
Yeah, look, this is still very much a frustration that I have, and I've been in conversations with the superintendent, with the office, our budget director, to come up with better systems. Right now, again, the way we have approached community safety in Chicago, it has been lopsided. And that's the impetus behind this conversation, as well as what we will do throughout the wards. Our Deputy Mayor Garen Gatewood, we are in our third quarter third quarter community meeting in Austin, in my neighborhood, around what the full force of government has to look like, right? Because what I've said to the people who work for me in my administration is that everyone is connected to community safety. Our Department of Transportation, Tom Carney, has been on the front line for a very long time around how we build safer infrastructure, because it also contributes to the overall safety of our city. So it is still a dynamic, quite frankly, and it's a worthwhile investigation that you have led of how the city of Chicago has to do a better job at delineating responsibilities so that the proclivity to simply rely upon policing as the only way in which we secure communities, that we shift away from that. Now look, of all of the things that I have to transform in this city, that one is tough, quite frankly, but I'm confident that we're going to build better systems of care. As you know, we have moved away from the pilot program, so our CARES program, where behavioral health, mental health workers will show up to the crises, of which 40% of the 911 calls are coming through. We expect and anticipate that will have some strong returns on investment. The fact that we are investing in young people, building better infrastructure, is something that we see will help turn the tide. And then the last thing I just think is an important note, since we were talking about education so much, I'm also responsible for our community colleges as well. And we've seen a 48% increase in enrollment at Malcolm X College. The number one subgroup that's enrolling in our community colleges are Black young men. And I'm grateful that we have a young brother with us today, Brother Powell, who I had a chance to meet earlier, who connected with Pastor Glover. And that relationship has given him inspiration and confidence that people care and love him, and that there will be more job opportunities for them. I know this is a little long-winded. I'm just simply saying that the reason why overtime has looked the way it has looked is because the way we have done community safety in Chicago and turning the tide and transforming that particular paradigm, that is an ongoing effort. There's some rigidity there that we do have to work through. And yes, there's still frustration, but I'm still very hopeful that we can turn things around. Thank you all again very much. Yep.